Hi Nate, just going to do a wee bit of a comparison for you with your golf swing with the Anne Van Dam here, and just a couple of things for you to look at. Because of the way the data uploads, I'll treat this almost as two separate swings. So I'll do the down the line first, and then we'll flip it and bring up the other video that you sent over. So from a setup position, I think first and foremost from this angle, there's a little bit of a postural thing going on. From the other angle, you'll see what's going on with the feet and things. But for me, very definitely, the lower body and the upper body almost look as though they're juxtaposed to one another. So the upper body kind of looks as though it's aligned to the left, with the lower body pointing right, certainly, of where the upper body is pointing. A bit of rounding at the spine. So realistically, what I would be looking to try and get you to do is to kind of replicate the straight line up Anne Van Dam's back here. So in essence, what we'll be looking for you to do is almost choose a point over here. Stand up straight, keep your eyes on the point that's up here. So if I just choose this point up here, and I would want you really kind of bowing forward. So a good way to practice this is just to get your posture, standing up nice and straight, and get a club or whatever and just put it across your waist and bow over it. The other way of doing it, actually, that I've seen is people imagining that they were bowing forward to pick something up from the ground. What we effectively want to eliminate is the rounding in the thoracic, because that area is where we want to be as mobile as possible and get as much rotation as possible, and that's somewhat compromised as a consequence of the posture. So if we look at the two swings together, linking is not going to work. As we look at the two swings together, you can see Anne Van Dam's very, very textbook. So you can see at this point, and obviously there's an element of this might come down to camera angles and things as well, but you can see she's very much just rotated to get into this position. The club face is mirroring her spine angle. The club's obscuring our club head's obscuring her hands to an extent, whereas at a similar position, you've got the club head significantly outside the hands at this point, and the spine angle is already beginning to change. Now, for me, the reason that happens is because of the shoulder alignment at address. So when the upper body is aligned to the left, the chances are that you're going to almost swing along the line of your body, swing along the line of the hands and arms. The club's likely to travel out this way on the way back, which is in effect what happens. So we can take the club away with the hands and arms, and then we start to try and drop the club into a better position. So the closer we get to the top of the backswing, the closer we get, but you can see just how vertical your club is versus hers. So shaft angle is quite steep versus fairly neutral. I mean, I suppose if you were to draw a line along her shaft angle, it's not that far outside the ball. Pretty decent position, I would say. If we take the club that bit further back, so again, very much a textbook position. You can see you've actually almost worked yourself into a decent posture now. There's not an awful lot of rotation happening with the lower body, and we'll see that perhaps more from the other camera angle. And I feel as though the hands and arms have had to do a lot of the work. Club face a little bit closed. Coming back down into the golf ball. This is the area that I think gives us the problems, or gives you the problems. So in the transition down, so a fairly significant loss of height, then we start to try and come back up. And as we do that, the club's trapped in behind our body. So we just take Anne down a couple of frames. You can see that her hips have turned an awful lot in order to get into this position. So the club stayed on virtually the same angle as it was earlier. You've shallowed yours out, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's probably a good thing. But the lower body is really, really passive. She's generating all her power by continuing to rotate. I wonder if this will blink now. No, it won't. So if I was to take Anne down through towards impact, you can see it's just a continual rotation of the body to get to that position. So as she approaches impact, I've got a similar position with the club. and you can see that she's definitely cleared the whole body out of the way. The lower body's done the majority of the moving. The upper body has remained almost on exactly the same axis right the way through, and you very definitely look as though you're kind of leaning back. So take it back just a couple of frames. This position would be really good if we were turning. And if we were continuing to turn out of the way, then you would end up with the club in a fairly neutral position. But you can see at this stage that you're then going to have to wrap the hands round quite a lot in order to get the club on the back of the ball rather than just continue to turn the body. And I think that's where your bad one, where your J. Arthur comes from. I think it just the club gets trapped behind you, you slide the hips into it. And I'll show you that in just a second from the other angle. So but if I just take Van Dam back to the top, if you just draw a line down her back, you see that kind of coming into the golf ball, her left hip is right onto that line, whereas you've just started to edge forward and straighten up a little bit. So it's all kind of minor changes, but I think the key certainly first and foremost is going to be postural, and then trying to encourage that rotation with the lower body. So we can obviously talk about some exercises with that. Let's have a look from the other angle. So this angle is fairly telling, I would suggest. Obviously grip in the left hand is really quite strong. I think that's something that you almost kind of fight then throughout the swing. Also fairly pronounced shaft lean, if not excessive shaft lean, so taking a lot of loft off the club and the feet fairly square on. You notice with Van Dam, she's got both feet turned out just a little. The consequence of having the feet kind of square on, I think for a lot of people it's a visual thing for alignment, but it does certainly restrict rotation into the backswing and into the impact zone. So, we're probably not turning the hips as well as you are capable of doing. If we compare on the opposite side, so you can see the backswing for her is very much just a big coil with the shoulders, huge big shoulder turn, loads of width. There's very little movement with hands and arms. There's no lifting, there's no excessive movement with hands at all. And then into the transition, she really drives. I'm going to take yours back just a couple of frames so we can try and sync these. She really drives with the legs, so the legs are leading absolutely everything coming into the golf ball. You can see just the position that she's managed to rotate into. So everything, lower body and then upper body, are all pointing left of target, whereas for you, you almost return back to the same position at impact as you were at address. But you've had to do that and try and add loft to the club as well because you've got this excessive shaft lean and a strong grip. So I think for me, changes I would be making, first off from the other perspective, was obviously postural. So let's just compare. Two side by side. So I would be splitting the feet out a little bit. So if you imagine that the camera where it is just now is a clock face, I would certainly have this left foot pointing somewhere between 10 and 11, and probably your right foot probably at 1 o'clock, and I would be trying to move the shaft back this way at address, so that you can see a little bit of loft on it, and B, you can get a real accurate idea of what that grip's doing, because it looks quite strong, but I'm not 100% convinced that it is that strong. If that makes any sense, it might well be that because the hands are pushed so far forward that it looks quite strong. So I'd like to see the hands back a little bit more neutral, and then get an idea of what the grip's doing. And I think as well, if the hands come back, then you probably find that this left shoulder comes round this way a little bit, which in turn probably flattens the back a little bit and squares up the lines along the forearms and the hips and the shoulders, so that then from there I would really just be trying to get you to turn your torso. So really just rotate as far as you can on the backswing, and if that means stopping here or here or here, whatever, it's basically just the length of swing determined by how far you turn your shoulders. so that from there you can really actually engage with the lower body and start to use the hips and really start to drive them towards the target. Because I'm not massively convinced that flexibility is an issue here. I think your flexibility is probably fairly decent. I could be wrong on that one, but I think it's probably fairly decent. If we get to this kind of position and just really rip the hips round, so basically turning your right hip over the left foot, imagine you're kind of trying to curl a ball in, taking a corner or a free kick or something, kicking a football with your right foot, or topspin forehand in tennis or something like that, or even hitting a clear or something in badminton. We need this lower body providing the power. At the moment, the power is coming from the hands and arms and relying on the fact that you are a reasonably strong upper body, but you've got to be stronger here. You've got to start to use this. So that would allow you to then turn through and not have to kind of fight it. I said, even looking from this perspective, there's almost an element the hips go slide forward rather than turn, and then the upper body wants to fall back that way because you're trying desperately to fight against that closed club face and try and add some loft to it, and avoid the old unmentionable. Hope that makes sense. Do a bit of work at it, maybe send me another video across and we'll get a comparison. Alright mate, catch you soon, cheers.